Hello folks, welcome to a new video. So in this video I want to discuss about JavaScript types, which is like the very, I mean, probably the most widely criticized thing that we have in JavaScript is the absence of types and the problems that it may end up causing. So if you have heard of TypeScript, like it was made for the sole purpose of solving this specific problem only. So TypeScript came into existence because JavaScript doesn't have types. So someone said, what would JavaScript look like if we added types to it? So then TypeScript came into existence. But to understand what errors it might cause, you have to actually like go through those. I mean, you have to actually face some of those, and then you will understand how frustrating it can be sometimes. But if you look at the first glance of it, it seems like a very, I mean, what to say? It seems like a decent language choice if you haven't tried it out. But if you have tried it out in large applications, you will see eventually how it causes problems and stuff. So what are types in JavaScript? So let's say I do this const a equals to a b c d or something, whatever. So here we know a is like const a is of type string, right? A b c d is a string. Then if you do const b equals to 1, let's say, so b is of type maybe integer or something, right? So like JavaScript doesn't have the concept of defining type specifically. So we can do something like let's say a plus b, which would maybe result in very unexpected results and stuff. See, so it became abcd1. So basically what it did was it treated it as a concatenation operator, right? So it's not like an addition operator. So it's a concatenation operator, and it wrote abcd1. Now if we do this, and if we try this, we get 11, right? So one string, one integer, it will convert the integer or number, let's say, to string, and it will concatenate it. And then if we try this, then that's what, right? See, so it should have been like the priority is not very predictable as such, right? Because if when you use the minus operator, it goes on to 1 minus 1 or something like that of a behavior, right? So if you do it 3 also, then if you try it converts it to an integer, and then it performs the arithmetic operations. So yeah, so that's a very unpredictable, that's one drawback of this thing, right? So you cannot predict what will happen if you perform a particular operation or anything as such that involves two kind of types, which it handles internally, most of the things. And most of those are not very intuitive. Like you have to try them out and check how is it behaving, and based on that you can do whatever you want, right? So that is fine. But one big problem with JavaScript is with objects. So this problem comes up when you are working with, let's say, request response or any kind of servers in JavaScript, right? So let's say it has a name. It has a name that's, let's say, Sam, and maybe it has an age that, let's say, 12 or something. Okay. Now what we have is, and let's say age is 12, and maybe he goes to some school, which is, let's say, school name is some XYZ, and then location is, let's say, null. Cool. Now let's do it for another one, right? Now we have Sam here, and then we have, let's say, let's make it an array. That would be better, I think. Let's make it an array of students, let's say, and then we do this, and we have it here, and then we have it here. Let's say calling some API which is returning the list of, I mean, the schools, the students in a particular school. Let's say what, Gary or something. Cool. So now ABC or ACB or whatever, location is some location. So this is the case, right? So what you want to do is you want to print the location of like whatever students we are getting. Okay, So let's say that's the use case. So what we'll do is something like students dot for each as, and what we do is console.log. So it's inside students there is as dot school dot location as the school dot location, right? Cool. So let's try this out. Let's see what it gives us. We get null and some location. Okay, that's the first use case. Now let's do one thing. Now let's say we made some sort okay, so let's add one more layer of location, one more layer of data in location, right? So let's do city as some location, and we want to print the city. Now the issue comes up. So when you do this, let's see what it happens. See, so this whole thing will crash your application, and it happens insane amount of times. If you have been through this error, it happens like insane amount of times. So this is a problem with JavaScript when you are doing it type. So there is ways to avoid it, like you can use question marks and all, which wasn't there initially, but I think it was. So it will just return undefined and stuff. But ideally that's a problem with types, because what I should expect is, let's say if it were a language with types, what it would say me, that school needs to be of school needs to have location needs to have city needs to have like a string, right? But it's not a string, it's a null. So if we can make it nullable, but let's say it's not nullable, we are expecting the location to be there, then we cannot initialize it like this. It would not go to even compilation. It would not go to build. It will say us that in the compile time itself. That happens in many cases. You can also maybe do some typo, right? Let's say you do this. It won't spit any kind of error, but when you build it, it will like screw things up. So that's the problem with types, right? So imagine this as some server endpoint you have, and you are getting the data in this format. So you expected it in this format, you did this, and for whatever reason someday location or any other field came as null, so that will end up crashing your whole application, right? If you were to have types in those cases, so that won't be there mostly. I mean, that can be avoided in the compile type itself. That error can be avoided in the compile time itself if you were to have types here. So this is one problem that comes up with JavaScript since it has no types. Other than that, another thing that I can think of is, one is these unexpected kind of implicit conversions and all that it does internally. Secondly, we have these sort of things, right? So yeah, so this, just keep in mind when you are doing these kind of things, right? When you are accessing objects, like going deeper into an object and accessing something, just be mindful that just in JavaScript you have to do, like, keep in mind you have to do proper validations and stuff. Let's say if I were to do something like if location is not null, then only print this. I could have done that, but it did, like, those things you need to take care of, which could have been done by the compiler itself, right? But yeah, so that's a lot of headache that you have to face when you're building large applications. The advantage that many people say is you can, like, very frequently change things without depending on a lot of things, right? So in small applications maybe that's useful, but as the application grows, it becomes a whole mess, to be honest, if you are not very careful about these things. And one thing that comes up is when multiple people are working on something, right? So let's say I define this as a structure. I know it's a structure, or I know this is the structure of this. If someone else sees it, there is no specific type as such, so they would assume that location will always come, but sometimes location will go as null, and their assumption will end up crashing the application, right? So yeah, so that's the problem with JavaScript types. So the reason behind the whole existence of TypeScript itself. So yeah, I think that should be it for this video. If you have any questions, you can ask in the comments, and I hope you find it helpful. Just be careful when you are using JavaScript with these types and all, or else let's switch to TypeScript. That's a better option. But yeah, I think that should be it for the video. See you guys. Bye.